Yet another aldermanic indictment in Chicago. This is prosecutors in New York have charged the Trump Organization and its chief financial officer, Allen Weisselberg, with tax fraud in a deliberate 15-year scheme to compensate company executives off the books. Both pleaded not guilty. Weisselberg is accused of dodging taxes on benefits valued at more than $1.7 million. And here to talk about the charges and what could come next in the ongoing investigations are Michael Monaco, a former federal prosecutor now known for his work as a criminal defense attorney as a partner at Monaco and Spivak, and Renato Mariotti, a former assistant U.S. attorney and a partner at Thompson Coburn LLP. Welcome back. Good to see both of you. First, Renato, before we get to the Trump news, almost 3 months here without an aldermanic indictment, but that drought ends today. What do you make of the charges against Alderwoman Carrie Austin that she and her chief of staff allegedly got benefits from a contractor whom she helped steer city money to?
I think she has to be very concerned. The current group over there doing public corruption work has been very aggressive, obviously, in a number of fronts. But it definitely looks like they have a significant case. And this is something, of course, we've known about and been anticipating for quite some time.
And it has been in the news, including a raid on her office. All right, let's turn to what happened in New York today. Mike Monaco, we mentioned the charges against the Trump Organization and CFO Allen Weisselberg. How serious do you believe these charges are?
Well, I think they are serious. They carry prison terms, although each of the 15 counts is probationable. What's interesting is it seems as though the state prosecutors in New York and the city prosecutors are going after Allen Weisselberg in a way that is intended to get him to cooperate against someone else. It's unclear whether he's going to do that. I say that because I know Mr. Cohen has testified many times about this matter. And
Michael Cohen, you're talking about the president's former president's former fixer.
Right, who's my client. And I can't go into exactly what he said, but I know it goes way beyond what's in this indictment.
So, Renato Mariotti, as you look at this, do you look at this as the end game here from the New York Attorney General's office and the New York Manhattan District Attorney's office, or the tip of the iceberg?
Well, we don't know for sure yet, but one thing I think is evident to me from looking at this is they have a substantial case. I think is likely to obtain a conviction if what's alleged in the indictment is in fact true. And what I will say is that it seems to me that they don't have the evidence right now to charge others or charge a more extensive scheme or conspiracy. If they did, I don't think they would be just dropping this more narrow, more focused charge on Weisselberg now. As Michael said, I think likely to try to get Mr. Weisselberg to flip.
So, and Mike, you alluded to that. I mean, the only person above Weisselberg is Donald Trump himself, or perhaps his sons, who allegedly were running the company. Do you look at this as sort of a classic attempt from the Justice Department to squeeze him to get more information to flip? And do you think he will flip?
Well, it seems that is what they're attempting to do. It's hard to say what he's going to do, since, as I say, each of the counts is probationable. It's not as when my client got 30 months in jail for deceiving the taxes on and paying hush money to the prostitutes. So
Stormy Daniels you're talking about?
Right. So I don't know exactly what our Allen Weisselberg is going to do. It seems that he's facing a very difficult choice. But as I say, since he may not be facing jail, I'm not sure. And that's something we'll have to see.
As you said, these charges could be probational, each of these charges. Renato Mariotti, the defense from Mr. Weisselberg so far, his attorneys, he's an accountant. He didn't know any of this was a follow the law. And then the public relations strategy from the Trump attorneys is to call it a political witch hunt. Are either these effective or believable defenses?
Well, I thought the Trump Organization statement was odd because it didn't even deny the charges, which Michael and I, when we represent clients, usually that's the first thing you say if you're representing a client who's been charged. So I thought that was unusual, that they didn't even deny the facts of the charges. What I will say is to Weisselberg, the difficulty he's going to have, if you read the indictment, is essentially it was a very straightforward scheme where basically they lowered his pay that was on the books and then gave him a commensurate off the books pay that they didn't pay taxes on or claim a deduction on. So he was actually the guy writing the checks. So he was writing the checks for his own rent on his own apartment from the Trump organization. And obviously it's going to, I think it's be hard for jurors to get their heads around an argument that he didn't know that he was receiving that benefit. Same with the cars he was getting or tuition for his kids. It's just a substantial amount of money, and he was in the thick of it.
Pretty easy case for jurors perhaps to follow. Mike Monaco, you mentioned Trump's former fixer Michael Cohen. He and Allen Weisselberg were behind that hush money payment to the porn star Stormy Daniels, which was the beginning of this whole investigation. Cohen went to prison for that. Weisselberg and Trump have not been charged. Here's some of what Cohen had to say today.
I won't discuss my conversations with the district attorney out of respect for the investigation. All I can say is, yes, there are a multitude of documents that are in the possession of prosecutors that tie Donald Trump to everything. The target of this investigation is not Allen Weisselberg. Of course, it's the CEO of the Trump organization, Donald Trump himself.
Mike Monaco, you mentioned that you had represented Mr. Cohen in that Stormy Daniels case. You talked to him today. Did he say any more to you about what he thinks of these charges and what might be coming?
He too is a bit surprised that it wasn't a bigger case.
What does he make of that, or what do you read into that?
The way I make of it is that the prosecutor Cy Vance and the New York Attorney General are being very careful, and they're taking their steps one at a time, and they're doing it in a way that they feel is best. They've got an excellent prosecutor they brought in Mark Pomerantz, who's also doing a great job, and it's going to be a long haul. We'll see what's going to happen. I think this is definitely not the end of the investigation.
Certainly, charging an organization tied to a former president carries with it is fraught with issues. Renato Mariotti, what does this do to the Trump organization, to Trump's sons, to their ability to conduct business, to their ability to get loans or to pay back their loans?
Yeah, I think that's significant, regardless of whether there's a conviction at the end of the day here. I will tell you from representing companies that have been under investigation or indictment that it really puts a constraint on the company. You know, employees start thinking about whether they want to find a new job. Anybody who's doing business with you suddenly reconsiders whether they really want to do that. When you try to get a loan or a line of credit, you have to disclose the charges to the creditor, and sometimes the lender doesn't want to get involved or loan you that money anymore. When you're trying to sell assets or have a merger or any sort of a business combination, that can be another difficult disclosure. I just think it can definitely hamstring a business and have serious consequences. So anyone suggesting this is a good day for the Trump organization is not being serious.
And that organization has already had trouble attracting a lot of lenders and banks to do business with it. Well, both of these cases, Austin and the Trump organization, we'll talk more about tomorrow on the Weekend Review. But for now, our thanks to Michael Monaco and Renato Mariotti.